There. I don't have any power wire for that. On. Got that there. Oops. All right. Okay. Let's see. There's my walkabout. There.
Right, this is WDREI. Welcome to the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Net. Good morning, everybody. Beautiful morning here in North Central Ohio. Welcome to the net. Got lots of good stuff to share with you here this morning. We'll be moving along quickly and try to cover as much as we can. As always, if you're interested in being a radio liaison to the 10:30 a.m. section of the Ohio Single Sideband net, let me know when you check in. Also, we're going to be talking about the Astron power supply, specifically the RF70A. So you get a chance to look up the schematics. They're all over the internet. You can find them. And we'll have a lot of fun. We'll learn a lot. I've already learned a lot just looking at the schematic. Okay. And I think you will too. And we'll have fun. You can earn a lottery card if you're our champion at the end of the 4 weeks. And brush up on reading schematic symbols. That's really, we keep it pretty basic, that part of it. Okay, lots of good stuff on Ohio section news around the area, and talk a little bit about some contesting skills. All right, so let's get started. Stations, again, always by a repeater. Stations on either of the two Republic repeaters, with or without traffic called out. Kilo Alpha 8 Lima, Kilo November, K8 LKN. Good morning, Jeff. No traffic. Good morning, Jeff. Alpha Charlie 8 Sierra Bravo, Scott Finley, no traffic. Alpha 8 Juliet Bravo Tango, Bob and Sandusky, good morning. This is Kilo Echo 8 Echo Romeo November, KE8ERN, Jim and Tiffin, no traffic. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. Kilo Echo 8 Papa X-Ray, Ron from Wyandotte County. Be happy to be your HF liaison to the OSSBN. Today, I have no traffic. Kilo Charlie 8 Whiskey Hotel, Mike and Republic, no traffic. Morse Jim. Good morning, Jeff. Kilo Charlie 8 Papa Bravo Uniform, KC8 PVU, Dan in Bascom, no traffic. KE8 DOD Bentley, no traffic. Like a nice group. Good morning, Frank. LKN. Good to hear you this morning, Frank. Good morning, Scott. Alpha Charlie 8 Sierra Bravo. Nice signal, Scott. Good morning, Bob. WA8JBT. Good signal, Bob. We're talking about here a little bit on special events, enhanced SMD test sessions. KE8ERN. Good morning, Jim. Good signal, Jim. We'll be talking to Jim on HF propagation beacons that you might have heard here this morning about 8 o'clock local time. Good morning to Mike, KC8WH. Hi, Mike. Good signal. and we'll be talking to Dan a little bit too here on some weather and IM stuff in Kansas. And affiliate station, I got Kilo Echo 8, Victor Oscar Delta. Do I got your call right? That's correct, that's Chris. Okay, good morning, Chris. And thanks for joining us. Good signal, by the way. It was just a little quick for me. Thanks for checking in, Chris. Nice to hear you. Anybody else in either of the two Republic repeaters with or without traffic, call now. Morning, Jeff. Kilo Echo 8 Papa X-ray, Ron from Wyandotte County. I have no traffic. I'd be happy to be your HF liaison to the OSSBN this morning. I have to be out by 11. Over.
I picked the wrong thing up.
Morning, Ron. I had you written down, but I was looking down my sheet, missed it. KEPX. Thanks, Ron, for being our HF liaison. And I know you have to be out by 11. No problem. Currently, I don't have any traffic listed. And let's check here with everyone else. Anybody listening have formal NTS traffic that they would like to list and get passed along here this morning? Call now. All right, sounds pretty quiet at the moment, Ron. Again, I made a note here you're going to be out by 11, so thanks for the heads up there. Thanks for being our liaison this morning. Always appreciate that, Ron. All right, anyone else on either of the two Republic repeaters with or without traffic, call now. Okay, stations on the Polk repeater, UHF 443.625 machine with or without traffic, call now. Kilo Echo 8, Romeo Whiskey, November. Kilo Delta 8, Sierra Lima Golf. LG, Lincoln Orville, no traffic in there. Anybody else on the Polk repeater with or without traffic, call now. Delta, Mike, Jim, and Ashland. I think you doubled with Nick.
Gee, there should be there.
We'll get everybody untangled here. Hi, Jim and Ashland. Give me your full call again. Delta, Mike. Okay, 5 minutes, Jim. What's happening when you're keying up, you're bringing up another repeater, and it's mixing with the beginning of your transmission. By the time it drops, all I catch is Delta, Mike. I'll look it up in the database. I'll get your whole call. You got a good signal once the other repeater drops. So I'm going to show you checked in from Ashland. Thanks, Jim. And I know Nick was trying to get in there too. Try again once, Nick. This is Kilo Delta 8, Sierra Lima Golf, KD8 SLG, Nick in Orville. No traffic today. Thanks, Jeff.
Down a little
All
bit.
right. Good morning again, Nick. Well, thanks for hanging in there. Kilo Delta 8, Sierra Lima Golf. Nice signal, by the way, from Orville, Ohio this morning. Good to hear your station. Anybody else on the Polk repeater with or without traffic? Call out. I don't know if you got me or not, Jeff. Kilo Echo 8, Romeo Whiskey, November, Tom, Good London. Tom, I got you. Kilo Echo 8, Romeo Whiskey, November. Got you in here, Tom. It didn't sound really good this morning. Anyone else on the 443-625 Polk repeater? Hearing none. Anybody on the Mansfield repeater this morning? That's the 443.075 machine that would like to check in with or without traffic? Call out. anybody on the 443.075 Mansfield repeater that would like to check in for the North Central Ohio Information Traffic, that call. Buddy on any of the three Berlin Heights repeaters, 146.805, 442.675, or the 6-meter 53.29 repeaters, call now.
Hey, QQ, Jim, Mark Townsend. November 8th, Foxtrot, Mike to Juliet,
Better.
Tom in Erie County.
Kilo Echo 8, Victor Oscar X-ray, Scott, Vermillion Township.
November 8, X-ray Lima, Quebec, Lenny, Huron City, Huron, Ohio. Good morning, Jeff. N8XLQ, YouTube's up.
Thanks for everybody. QQI, got you, Jim. Good signal. N8FNJ, good morning, Tom. Good signal. Kilo Echo 8, Victor Oscar X-ray. Good morning, Scott. Nice signal. And N8XLQ, good morning, Lenny. Good, great signal. Thanks for checking in. Lenny says YouTube is up. Let's take a look. Take a listen to your station. See what it looks like and what it sounds like. Anybody else on any of the three Berlin Heights repeaters with or without traffic, call out.
Good morning, Jeff. Whiskey 8 Hotel, no traffic.
Hey, good morning, Gary. WW8H. Good signal, Gary. Thanks for checking in this morning. Anyone else on any of the Berlin Heights repeaters, call out. On the Elyria 443.9875 repeater that would like to check in with or without traffic, call now. Kilo Echo 8, Tango Sierra Victor Jerry in Grafton. Good morning, Jeff.
Banging signal, Jerry.
Good morning, Jeff. This is November 8th, Papa Sierra Rick Parma. Kilo Bravo 8, Mike Victor Tango, in Oberlin.
KE8YUD, Kilo Echo 8 Yankee, Uniform Golf, Josh and Avon Lake. Good morning, Jeff.
Gotta get to
Nice
F4.
room.
Excuse me.
Let's see, Warren Jerry, Kilo Echo 8, Tango Sierra Victor. Nice signal, Jerry, from Grafton this morning. November 8, Papa Sierra. Good morning, Rick. Nice signal from Parma Heights. Kilo Bravo 8, Mike Victor Tango. Good morning, Keith. Nice signal from Oberlin. And Kilo Echo 8, Yankee Uniform Golf. Nice signal, Josh, from Avon Lake. Anybody else on the Elyria 443.9875 repeater, call now. Kilo 8, Charlie, Victor, Mike, K8CVM, Chuck, Mobile. Morning, Chuck. Kilo 8, Charlie, Victor, Mike, Mobile. Nice signal, Chuck. Really good into the repeater this morning, a little quiet. How about anybody anywhere? Anyone anywhere that would like to check into the North Central Ohio information and traffic net, call now. Kilo 8, Juliet, Echo, Kilo. John in Litchfield, Ohio. Hey, good morning, John. Kilo 8, Juliet, Echo, Kilo. and I believe it was Litchfield, Ohio. That sounds like a new call sign. Have you checked in here before, John?
Hi, good morning. No, I don't believe I have. I was just going through the frequencies here and heard you put out the call. Figured I'd jump in there and say good morning.
Well, we're glad you did, John. Well, welcome to the net. You got a great signal, by the way. Let's check. I got a Jim K-E-R-N. He keeps track of the database, the new call sign. Let's check with Jim and see if in fact you've ever checked in here before. And if not, he's going to tell you which number of new call sign you appear on the list. K-E-R-N. Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
This is K-E-A-D-R-N. John, you're checked in on April 22nd of 2020, and your number in the log is 113. Back to that, K-E-A-D-R-N.
Okay, fine business. Thanks, Jim. There you go, John. Back on April 22nd of 2020, you were in here at your number 113. I think we're getting close to 300. I think we're somewhere around 275, give or take. But anyway, nonetheless, good to hear you this morning, John. Great signal from Litchfield, Ohio. And thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being in here this morning. All right, anyone else anywhere with or without traffic, call now. Sounds pretty quiet. Again, beautiful morning here in north central Ohio. Just gorgeous. Hope everybody gets a chance to get outdoors and get some exercise and fresh air today. Well, again, lots to talk about here this morning. We'll move along kind of quickly. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our WWV report here this morning. Solar terrestrial indices for yesterday's date, September 12th, the solar flux was 154, and the estimated planetary A index is 25. So that's kind of an elevated A index. The estimated planetary K index at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning on September 13th, today's date, was 2.67. Also an elevated K index reading. So space weather for the past 24 hours has been moderate. Geomagnetic storms reaching the G2 level occurred. Now, space weather for the next 24 hours is predicted to be minor. Geomagnetic storms reaching the G1 level are likely. Radio blackouts reaching the R1 level are likely. That's all interesting stuff. Every now and then I try to tie some information in from other people's experiences with HF propagation conditions that relate to, in this case, geomagnetic storms, like we're experiencing here in the last day or two. Well, let's see what this gentleman has to say. He said generally the F layer, maximum usable frequency, and we're going to talk about that again in a minute, it gets depressed. You will find that severity and duration of geomagnetic activity depresses the maximum usable frequency more. Higher frequencies and long dead. It often takes a day or more for solar winds to bring increased particles to Earth and a few days to recover once the geomagnetic field goes quiet again. That's interesting what this gentleman says here, because one of the things you're going to see if you haven't already is a lot of times there's quite a bit of contradiction in people's experiences and reports and what the statistics or the science is showing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It doesn't mean that their experiences aren't accurate, but there could be other reasons that their experience is a little different. So keep that in mind. And this solar stuff, and trying to match it up with reality sometimes gets a little bit tricky, I guess is the best way to put it. Again, I've seen lots of contradictory information on reports versus actual conditions. And I say that is because I know that I went back and looked on some of the dates when our geomagnetic storms took place, like this last day or two, and I noticed the maximum usable frequency for the ionosphere in Alpena, Michigan still showed a pretty good high frequency muff. So again, seems contradictory. Well, let me mention a few other things that this gentleman mentioned. He says effects on propagation are most pronounced over polar paths and within higher latitudes. You will notice the expansion of the aurora oval and brighter northern lights. So he's saying that, the further north we go here, those HF paths become affected quite a bit more by geomagnetic storms the further north you go. He says also absorption of radio signals increases, leading to Arctic flutter or scintillation, and often total absorption. As you will notice other effects from increased geomagnetic activity, including higher atmospheric noise. On the other hand, transequatorial propagation may actually improve. So you get good and you get bad, and you get contradictions sometimes. But again, try to learn the terms of what they're supposed to mean, and try to match things up and learn. That's what this is all about. It's a fairly new science studying HF propagation and how the sun affects our ionosphere. So we're learning as we're going, all of us. REI for identification, just continuing here on the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Net. We'll take a look at the space weather. Our latest report here. So currently the solar wind is about 422 kilometers per second. We've established an average of about 350 kilometers per second to be pretty quiet solar wind conditions. So it's a little bit elevated. Looking at the solar flares in the past 24 hours, nothing major. We had a little C-class flare, but it's already been 48 hours ago when we experienced 2 M-class flares. But nothing really major here in the last 8 hours. Now, an unexpected coronal mass ejection hit Earth's magnetic field yesterday on September 12th at 12:37 Universal Coordinated Time. Now, that would have actually been September 11th for us at about 8:37 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, sparking a G2 class geomagnetic storm and bright auroras around the Arctic Circle. The skies over Iceland erupted in swirls of red and green light. Again, Iceland being farther north, right, closer to the polar caps, they experience those geomagnetic auroras more than what we see, and we're so much further south. So the sunspot number right now is 141. So lots of sunspots on the face of the sun. So the potential for other HF activity is definitely there. Now let's take a look at our current ionogram. And we're going to be looking at the ionogram for the ionosphere in Alpena, Michigan, about 200 miles to our northwest. So our conditions usually follow fairly close to what they experience around Alpena. However, they could be different. HF propagation can change really quickly, especially at this time of the morning. What we're looking at here this morning, I got the propagation report ionosphere for 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on today's date, September 13th. Now, in just a minute, we're going to check with Jim. And Jim, he listens at 8 o'clock in the morning to all the HF DX beacons around the world to get an idea of real propagation openings from his location to different locations around the world. And what we'll do is we'll look and see what the maximum usable frequency was at the Ionophant in Alpena, Michigan at 8 o'clock this morning when Jim's listening, and see if it matches up with the band openings that he hears, what bands he hears these stations on. REI for identification. So let's take a look here at our ionogram. So right now, there are two very well-defined F layers, F1 and F2. You've read about them, studied about them when you took your ham radio test. And if you look at an ionogram, quite often you can see them. You can see them in the ionogram. There's also an E layer, a defined E layer that I can see in the ionogram, and they each have their own critical frequency. Again, the critical frequency being as you start to sweep the frequency higher and higher, start at 2 megahertz, eventually you reach a point where the signal no longer bounces back down to the earth. It just goes out into space. And it's a reference. It gives you an idea of what high angle propagation might be at the various frequencies. A real handy thing for people that operate NVIS. So let's take a look. The critical frequency of the F2 layer right now is 7.388 megahertz. 7.388 megahertz. And the height of the F2 layer right now is about 275 kilometers high. The higher it goes, the longer the skip distance, by the way. If you're transmitting from a vertical antenna with a low angle radiation. So because the maximum usable frequency of the F2 layer is higher than the 40-meter band, high angle radiation or NVIS on 40 meters is probably pretty good this morning. Assuming there's not a lot of what's called D-layer absorption that's caused as the sun comes up, it creates that ionized D layer, which absorbs a lot of energy on frequencies in our 75, 80, and 40 meter bands. Hey, so the F1 layer, it has a critical frequency right now of 5.6 megahertz. So anything higher than that, with a signal pointed straight up at 90 degrees straight up, will pass through the F1 layer and go into hit the F2 layer. And again, the F2 layer's critical frequency is 7.388, so anything higher than that will pass right out into space. All right, now the E layer, the critical frequency of the E layer, which right now is right around, it usually hovers right around 90 kilometers, and that's where it's at right now, is 3.15 megahertz. Okay, now let's talk about the maximum usable frequency. Right now, at this time, the MUF, or maximum usable frequency, is 24.5 megahertz. Now you got openings, on your 8 high HF bands, 30 meters, or excuse me, right, 30 meters, 20 meters, 17 meters, 15 meters, and even 12 meters could be open to different parts of the world, from the Alpena, Michigan area, and our area, really, because we're very close. In a minute, I'm going to look here at the Ionophant at 8 o'clock this morning to see what the maximum usable frequency was then, because that's when Jim's listening to the HFDX beacons that are all over the world. So now, let's go take a look at the MUF right now is 24.5 megahertz. Let's see what the maximum usable frequency was at 8 o'clock this morning. Let me identify again. This is WB8REI. This is the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. All right, looking at the Ionophant generated by a piece of equipment in Alpena, Michigan. On today's date, September 13th at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the maximum usable frequency was 18.2 megahertz. So somewhat lower than what it is right now. So earlier this morning, the MUF was lower than what it is right now. So 18.2 megahertz meters through 10 meters. In other words, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. And so Jim probably, let's take a stab at it, right? Probably heard some beacons on 20, possibly heard some beacons on 17 meters. But above that, 15, 12, and 10, probably not. But let's find out. Let's see if that's true. Let's turn it over to Jim, KERN, WB8REI. Jim, how's propagation this morning?
Well, I had 7 beacons heard on 20 meters and nothing on the higher bands. Now, on 17 meters, the noise floor was S2, and as you went up in frequency, the noise floor climbed to S6 on 10 meters. Then noise floor on 40 meters was S0 through the whole band. And the 80 meter band, the noise floor was S7 throughout the whole band. Back to you, KEADRN.
Hey, Jim, very good. Well, that pretty much matches pretty closely with what our maximum usable frequency showed at 8 o'clock this morning. Again, it was 18.2 megahertz. So Jim heard beacons on the 20 meter band. Matter of fact, 7 of them. And didn't hear any on the 17 meter band. Now, 17 meters starts at 18.068 megahertz and goes to 18.168. The muff was just above it. And again, that's Alpena. Here a little bit further to the southeast, about 200 to 250 miles. Apparently it was not open yet. At least Jim didn't hear anything. No beacons. So there is a difference. Even though it's the closest one to us, they can still be a little bit different. Interesting on the noise floor, Jim's got no noise, dead quiet, it sounds like on the 40 meter band. And which is interesting. And he's got an F7 on the 80 meter band. So it's just kind of interesting. We try to kind of keep track of that to see how Jim's noise floor appears on 80 and 40 meters. So you might want to take a look at yours, see if yours matches up. Of course, they're not going to be exactly the same. Remember, you're at a different location than the Jim. You may have a different ambient noise level in your neighborhood, different than Jim's, and you're probably using a different antenna than Jim's using. But not only that, but S meters are not all calibrated the same, believe it or not. We talk about that all the time. But it's still interesting to take a look and compare. The WB8REI in the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Net. Are there any returning stations or any other stations that would like to check in with or without traffic call now?
Control, Whiskey 4, Bravo, Tango, Juliet, Tim, and Masco. No traffic.
Good morning, Tim. W4B, Bravo, Tango, Juliet. Nice signal, Tim. Nice to hear you on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Thanks for checking in. Anybody else?
This is Tammy, Wire.
Morning, Mike. KM8YOR. Nice signal, Mike. Nice to hear you this morning. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jeff, this is KEPX, returning from the OSSBN with no traffic.
I got you back, Ron, KEPX. And thanks for being our HF liaison this morning, Ron. Much appreciated. And again, I know you're going to be out in about 10 minutes here. Again, thanks for taking care of that for us. Before we move on, are there any stations, anybody that might be holding formal NTS traffic? Call now. All right, let's keep going here. Lots to talk about here this morning. Let's take a look at the tropospheric ducting map and the forecast. gets out about 5 to 6 days. It gives us it gives us yesterday, and then today, and then 5 days ahead. So let's take a look at it. And what I do is I bump through the forecast map, and what I'm really looking for is something that's outstanding, something that looks like it's going to be really unusual, with really good conditions. So as I'm bumping through the forecast map, for the most part, in various parts around Ohio and Indiana and Michigan, conditions are patchy marginal. On a scale from 1 to 10, that's a 1. However, as we get into Friday, September 15th, at 8 o'clock in the morning, things start to pick up a little bit, especially in northwest Ohio and into southeast Ohio, where we get patches of fair to moderate conditions, 2 to a 3. Now, getting into Friday evening at 8 p.m. over the western basin of Lake Erie starts to jump up to strong to high. That's a 4 to a 5. And moving the map up a little bit further to the wee hours of Saturday morning, September 16th at 2 a.m. Northwest Ohio is high to strong conditions. In pretty much all of Ohio, at least 2/3 of it is high to strong. Mainly in the southeast portion of Ohio. Northwest Ohio is in the fair to marginal area, or a 1 to a 2. But if you're right up at the like the Toledo area or the western part of Lake Erie or southeast Michigan, you're looking at patches of high to strong conditions. Moving on into 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday morning, September 16th. It remains kind of the same. It doesn't change too much. All over Lake Erie remains strong. The very southeast part of Ohio along the Ohio River is also strong. And then pretty much the rest of the state is in fair to marginal conditions. Things start to really clear out. Other than over Lake Erie, there's not really too much happening tropospheric ducting wise. So that's kind of our report. Not too much happening. About 3 weeks ago or whatever, we experienced a really big band opening, and we kept track of some of the maps showing the tropospheric forecast ducting, and you can see the big temperature inversions as it closed in on the Midwestern states. And anybody that was listening in the morning, at 8, 9 o'clock that morning, you would have heard the mixing of many repeaters and distant stations coming in. It was really quite something, especially for anybody that's never experienced tropospheric ducting conditions before. This is WBREI at the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Just trying to move along here kind of quickly this morning, taking a look at the current status of the International Space Station.
Comment, Jeff, in AQQI.
At AQQI, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, the astronaut woke me up about 5 o'clock yesterday morning. It's on about 5 or 6 minutes, I guess. Good clear copy, and they were in English.
Oh, fine business, Jim. Did you say they were talking in English?
That's correct.
All right, super. Thanks for that report. In just a second, I'm gonna take a look back and see which school contact that was and to what part of the world it was. And very interesting. I'll comment some more on that. And so Jim heard the ISS at 5 a.m. Early this morning, caught about 5 to 6 minutes of the transmission, which is fairly clear in English. So we'll see what that transmission was. Just looking at the current status of the radio in the Columbus module.
That was yesterday morning, Jeff.
Excuse me, I got that. I actually wrote yesterday morning and I said this morning. Thanks for correcting me on that. Appreciate it. All right. Current status of the ISS. So in the Columbus module, that's at one end of the International Space Station. That's where that radio is located. It is in crossband FM repeat, 145.99 as you transmit with a PL total of 67 hertz, and you receive on 437.800. Space Station visual passes that you can see. It's nice to have an HT with you. You can listen to the crossband FM repeater activity and even try to make a contact through it. It's pretty tricky with an HT, but people have done it. Now, they will be shutting the radios off, let's see, on September 14th. They'll be shut off at 2:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they'll be turned back on September 16th, and that will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So there's a little period there they're going to be shut off for a Soyuz docking mission. Now, that's the same off period for the other radio, which is at the opposite end of the International Space Station. It's located in the service module. It is in APRS packet mode on 145.825 megahertz, transmit and receive. It also will be shut off September 14th. Again, that will be at 4:35 p.m. and turned back on September 16th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, let's take a look here. I don't see any school contacts that we're going to be able to hear coming up. There's none listed that we will hear. No footprints in our area, unfortunately, but when we see them, we'll definitely let you guys know. Now, let's take a look here. Let's see, do I have trying to see if I've got the list for yesterday. Yeah, here it is. So the one that Jim heard on September 12th, let's see, of course, this shows, making sure we're looking, you gotta look at the dates and times very carefully. It's easy to pick the wrong one. So September 12th at 5:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, that's what Jim said, there was an Aries radio contact between the International Space Station and let's see where these guys were at. Was in Tunisia, and let's see here. Yeah, that was with the private Higher School of Engineering and Technology in Little Ariana, Tunisia. So that's where the contact was being teleconferenced to. Since the footprint was not over Tunisia, it was here in the United States. Jim actually heard it. It had to be patched. There would have been an amateur radio operator here in the States that would have provided the RF link, and then he would have provided the teleconference patch to the school in Ariana, Tunisia. So that's how it would have went. What was interesting, and Jim brought it to our attention, was, and I was curious, was whether or not those would be in English. And according to Jim, it was. You could only hear the one side, just the astronauts, as they were answering the questions that the students were asking. So apparently the students speak English as well as their own native language, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that's always the case, or sometimes they may speak in their native language, assuming one of the astronauts can speak that particular language. So it's kind of an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on. Jim, you got anything else on your what you heard this morning?
I didn't hear anything this morning.
Excuse me. Well, I don't know why I want to keep saying that. I mean, yesterday morning.
No, they wasn't talking about anything technical, just normal questions when I asked them what they done for fun and stuff like that. So it wasn't nothing technical.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at they actually post a list of questions that the kids ask. And yeah, a lot of times, see, one of them was, what was the most surprising thing you noticed about Earth from space? It says, what do you do for fun in space? What's the most advanced technology we can find only on the International Space Station? Here's a good one. What does the ISS smell like? Why do astronauts have ears on their gloves? That's an interesting question. So there's just some of them that the kids would have asked. Anyway, thanks for that report, Jim. Really appreciate that. Kind of answered a question that I had as to whether or not it would be English or a foreign language. Anybody got anything else to add to the International Space Station?
About the Earth, the astronaut said they
you watching there a lot out the window, and it's amazing how much of there is covered with water.
Interesting. Like I got off my page, I can't see if there was actually a question. Must have been right that talked about how much of the area that they view from the space station is covered in water. That's kind of interesting too. So the kids do formulate some really good questions that are interesting. And somebody was doubling in there with you, Jim. Let me double check here. I think somebody was trying to check in. Who was the station trying to check in? Call again. Does any PPS, they had a question. Okay. Hi, Rick. Any PPS, go ahead.
Yeah, this is for you, Jeff. Last week, you sent some traffic to find out which two licensees you heard, or which one of the two through the ISS repeater. I was wondering if you got any information back, any responses.
Good question. You know, I've been trying to watch for that too, and no, I have not gotten any responses back. So one of two things. Neither of those two stations were the station that I actually heard, or if for some reason the message didn't get through. But usually, National Traffic System is pretty reliable. Those messages are pretty reliable. If they wouldn't have not got delivered, normally the delivering amateur radio operator would have serviced the message back to me, telling me that the message was undeliverable due to, could be a myriad of things. So I'm assuming they got to the two people. Apparently it was neither one of them, because we did ask for a response. I just thought it would be a fun thing to do, and all I caught was the suffix. I didn't get the prefix. So I looked up on QRZ, and fortunately there was only a handful of call signs with that suffix. I narrowed it down from about 4 down to those 2, but I still may have not gotten the suffix right. But I thought it would be fun to try it. If I hear any response back from anybody on that though, Rick, I will be sure to let you know. Thanks for asking.
Okay, I'll be following along. I just found it really interesting. All right, I don't want to tie up the net. Any PPS, I'll be listening.
All right. Then no problem, Rick. Ask a question or jump in here anytime. I try to get feedback from you guys. I appreciate it. All right. Before we continue, we're going to take a look at we are going to go to Dan here with weather and ISS stuff. Before we do, are there any other stations that would like to check in with or without traffic? Call out. All right, hearing nothing, let's go over to Dan, KCAPB. Dan, how are you this morning? And what you got for us?
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning to everybody on the net. So I've just got some weather and some nice ISS stuff, so I'll just get right to it here. Today, slight chance of showers, and then mostly sunny, only a 20% chance. High of 70 today. Tonight, partly cloudy, low of 48. You know, there's a lot of 40s in this forecast this week. Thursday, sunny, high of 70. Thursday night, mostly clear, low of 48. Friday, sunny, high of 72. Friday night, mostly clear, low of 48. Sounds like a broken record. Saturday, mostly sunny, high of 74. Saturday night, mostly cloudy, low of 55. Sunday, partly cloudy, then a chance of showers, 30% chance of showers later on, high of 72. So not a bad week. Well, I tell you what, I think fall's right around the corner, Jeff. On to some ISS, and I've got one tie-in gong in here also. So we'll take these in order. We'll start off with the ISS. Tonight, Wednesday, September 13th, 8:56 p.m. Enters 9 o'clock p.m. exits from the southwest. Enters from the southwest, exits out the east. Maximum elevation, 45 degrees, and a That should be really nice and bright. Number 2, another ISS, Thursday, September 14th, 8:09 p.m. Exits at 8:14 p.m. From the southwest, out the east, 26 degrees maximum elevation, negative 3.3 magnitude. Have trouble remembering that magnitude today for some reason. Okay, number 3, another ISS. Friday, September 15th, 8:57 p.m. Exits at 9:03 p.m. From the west-southwest, out the east, maximum elevation 61 degrees, magnitude negative 3.3. Here comes a tie-in golf. Saturday, September 16th, enters at 6:37 a.m. This one was specifically for you, by the way, Jeff. 6:37 a.m. and enters. 6:43 a.m. exits. From the west, out the east, 68 degrees maximum elevation, and a magnitude of it's actually a positive 1.0. So that's considerably dimmer than the negative numbers. Just a little reminder on that. Okay, and last but not least, another ISS. Monday, September 18th. Enters at 8:11. Exits at 8:17. From the west, out the northeast, 39 degrees maximum elevation, negative 2.2 magnitude. Some pretty nice passes there. We're going to definitely try to get out to get most of these in view when they happen. And there's a few more on the ISS Detect, so you may want to check. I kind of hold it off to like 5 passes for this step. So there you go, Jeff. Thank you very much. KCPBU. All right, Dan, got them all jotted down. Really nice passes coming up. Excellent. Tonight's going to be a good one. Tonight, I think we're going to have clear skies, hopefully. Quick question on the one for ISS on Monday, September 18th. So that's 8:11 a.m. to 8:17 a.m. I'm sorry, no, both of them are p.m. 8:11 p.m., 8:17 p.m. Okay, glad I checked. It makes it so nice because you do all the hard work. You do all the hard work, picking out the good ones and give us the dates and times. And yeah, I missed that AM PM thing, so I want to make sure I had that one right. Got it. Thank you very much, Dan. Also, this time of the year is a good time. I don't know how many astronomers we have here, but I got a telescope like last year, and with some of these clear evenings in the forecast that you've been given, Dan, might be some good nights to get out and take a look at some of the planets and that for those that are astronomy type people. I might just stick my telescope out here the next day or two and take a look myself. All right, good stuff. Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate the report. DCBR and then that WPAREI, North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. We're going to go to Bob here next. Before we do, are there any other stations that would like to check in? Call now. All right, let's check and see how Bob's doing this morning, see what he's got for us. WAAJBD, the mic's yours, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and good morning to everybody on the net. Do have a couple of hamfests coming up this weekend. They're not real close. Well, one of them's fairly close. Had Finley last weekend. The weather was perfect. Had a good time there. Found a couple of bargains and talked to a lot of old friends. So it was a great weekend for a hamfest.
Saturday is kind of unusual. It's a combination car show and ham radio swap meet. It's not listed on ARRL. Picked up a flyer. The guys were running around at different ham fests promoting it. Location is also unusual. It's at the Levitt Funeral Home, 801 Victor Street in Belfry, Ohio. They have free admission. They do sell raffle tickets to, they're giving away an FT 891 HF rig as a door prize. The admission is free, but I guess you have to buy a raffle ticket if you want to get in the drawing. They also said they've got free food, and if you want to set up, again, it would be free. It's just an outdoor swap meet, I assume. Time is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is also different for Ham Fest. Most of them are real early and early there and over with real quick. But also on Sunday is the Adrian, Michigan Ham Fest, and that one is got an indoor setup, some vendors inside, but usually have a great outdoor flea market. And there at the Lenawee County Airport, 2651 West Cadmus Road in Adrian, Michigan. They are listed on ARRL.org, so you can find their details there. The admission is $5. Trunk sale spots are $3, and they open at 8 a.m., set up for vendors at 6 a.m., and they will have testing at that Ham Fest. And again, it's Adrian, Michigan, fairly close to northwestern Ohio. As far as special events, not a lot of them listed this week, but the Route 66 on the air is still going on. That's continuing until September 17th, Sunday. And for details in a logging sheet, you can actually go to their website, W6JBT in San Bernardino, California. I've already worked about 6 of them, so they're on the air and active. Just have to look for them. They're operating all bands and all modes, phone and I worked FT8, but all the calls will be a W6 and one letter, so they've pretty much blocked out the one-by-one calls with a W6 for that special event. September 15th, the National POW MIA Recognition Day, operating 1800 Zulu to 2100 Zulu, call letter N3TAL from Lanham, Maryland, and it looks like they're only operating 40-meter phone. 75-year anniversary of ARRL affiliation. For a group in Lisle, Illinois. They're operating Saturday and Sunday, September 16th and 17th, and they're only showing an hour each day, 1700 Zulu to 1800 Zulu. Call letter W9DUP, and they'll be operating on 80 meters and 20 meters. It looks like on 20 they're operating several digital modes and phone. And one final one is State Line Radio Club Annual Picnic, September 16th. They're operating from 100 Zulu to 800 Zulu. Call letter N3SLC from Holtwood, Pennsylvania. And they'll be operating phone portions of 20 meters, 40, and 10 meters. You can find the information for most of the special event stations at the ARRL.org. Click the On the Air tab and go down to the listing of special event stations. And to make sure to clarify it, you can search by area, but you can also just click on it without specifying any search, and it brings up everything they have listed and from whatever date you search on. Also,
check QRZ with call letters, the one-by-one calls, or whatever call letter they're using. Usually they have a pretty extensive information on QRZ when they're doing a special event operation. As far as testing, only a couple of test stations this weekend also. Cuyahoga Falls, actually, that one is on September 14th, 6:30 p.m. No walk-ins, you have to call ahead. James Grover is a contact, and his number is 330-928-8921, and it's at the Cuyahoga Falls Library, 2025 2nd Street in Cuyahoga Falls. One other one, Hamilton, Ohio, near Cincinnati, September 16th on Saturday, 9 a.m. No walk-ins, register ahead. The contact there is Thurl Golden. Phone number is 513-939-4891, and the testing is at the Fairfield Township Administration Building, 6032 Morris Road in Hamilton, Ohio. And as I mentioned at the Hamfest listing, if you're going to the Adrian Hamfest, they do have testing at 9 a.m. At their facility at the airport. You just walk-ins there, so you don't need to register ahead for that one. There's also still about 24 different groups that are doing online exams, and they're listed at arrl.org under licensing, education, and training. And there's also, you can check at hamstudy.org, and they have a search and a chart, probably a little easier to use than the ARRL website to find a online or in-person testing. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jeff. WA-JBT. Hey, Bob. Oh, man, lots of good information. Trying to get as much jotted down as I could here. Anybody need anything repeated or have any questions or comments about Bob's information on the Hamfest or special event stations, test sessions, anything like that? Call it out. All right, my business on the Route 66 special event again this year. Bob, you got 7 of them, or 6 of them it sounds like. How many total are there, Route 66 special event stations, do you know? Yeah, there's 20 altogether. There's 17 that are at specific locations, and then they have, 18 at specific locations, and they have 2 in Arizona that are rovers, Rover 1 and Rover 2, so they'll be moving probably along the route in Arizona, WAJBT. Okay, very good. I didn't know that. I've worked it before in the past. Never got the total number of them, but a really fun and interesting special event activity for sure. Geez, anybody that likes to get on, make some quick contacts, learn a little bit about the old Route 66. It's just a fun event. And you mentioned their website there too. I guess you want to keep track of your contacts and the different ones that you've worked. And then, do they do a certificate or anything, Bob? Yeah, actually, they got a pretty nice certificate. I don't remember the cost. I think they asked for a $5 donation, something like that. I just dug out one that I got a couple of years ago, and I think I only worked about 3 of them then. So far, they've got stations all the way from Santa Monica is the first one, W6A, and all the way to Chicago, Illinois, W6Q would be into the route. So I did get LA, but the others are in Missouri and Illinois that I've worked so far. WAJBT. Hi, fine business, Bob. Well, let us know how your progress is. I got to get on the radio and work with you. I haven't worked on it yet, but we'll be listening for them for sure. I'm sure they're all over the place there. Very good. Well, thanks, Bob, for all the info. Appreciate it. Lots of fun, especially bus stations are a good time. Simple, quick contacts. A lot of times you can get a nice QSL card certificate and learn a little bit of maybe some history or geography about the special event. All right. Before we continue, are there any other stations that would like to check in? Anyone else that would like a signal report going on?
Quick comment, Jeff.
Yeah, Bob?
I probably mentioned it, but if you go to their website, they have a chart, a real nice chart you can print out. You can keep track of what you worked, the information they need to send in. Then you have to print a different one out if you send for the certificate, WAHABT.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I knew you mentioned it, the website there for Route 66 special event. And thanks for the clarification there. Yeah, that would be nice to have a chart printed out so you can just glance up and get a good indication of where you're at, what you've worked, and the ones you're hoping to work. Very good. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Any other stations?
Good morning, Kilo Bravo 8, Zulu United November, Jeff in North Ridgeville, Lorraine County, no traffic.
Hi, Jeff. KD8, Zulu United. I missed the last letter.
Zulu Uniform November.
Got it, Jeff. KD8, Zulu Uniform November. Great signal, by the way. Nice to hear you this morning. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Whiskey 8 Kilo Foxtrot, Claire Collins, no traffic. Good morning, Jeff.
Majority in Norwalk.
Hey, Yuri.
All right, two more stations. WDKF, good morning, Claire. Great signal. And good morning, Jordy. Good signal from Norwalk. You just kind of doubled in there in the beginning, Jordy. Give me your call sign again.
November 8, Bravo, Alpha, Bravo.
Hey, got it. November 8, Bravo, Alpha, Bravo. All right, again, good morning and nice signal. Thanks for checking in. Anyone else?
This is Kilo Echo 8 Delta Romeo. Troy Weller. Good morning, Jeff. I have no traffic.
Hey, good morning, Troy. KE8, Delta Romeo. Nice signal from Willard this morning. Nice to hear you. Anybody else? Let's keep going here. Lots to talk about. As we go along here, you get a chance. You want to follow along. We start talking about the Astron RS70 power supply specifically. We're going to be looking at the schematic diagram, maybe identifying a few components, talk a little bit about maybe how it operates. If you participate in any way, just identify anything on the schematic that will earn you 1 point. You get just 1 point each time. We do this for 4 weeks, and who's ever got the most points at the end of the 4 weeks will win the lotto card. And we don't do any ties, we'll do a runoff. We just do a little number guessing game there to pick the winner. So keep that in mind. It's a lot of fun, and you get to brush up on your schematic reading skills and learn a little bit about a popular piece of equipment everybody's got or has at one time. And a power supply. They're all fairly similar. So we'll be talking about that. All right, well, let's continue. Take a look here at the Ohio Section Swap Shop where there's all kinds of stuff up there. We're not going to cover it all here this morning, but we'll just grab the first two here. And so, gentleman says he has an Ameritron AL811A for sale. The case and face condition is perfect. No dings or scratches, non-smoking. It puts out full power, 600 watts, except 10, it's about 500 watts on 10. Says the meters work, but lamps do not. Included is a tuning pulse that is wired for he needs a tuning probably a 2-inch plug that is wired for an ICOM 8-pin connector, so that can be changed. Also a spare set of tubes. His price is $750. He says he's in North Olmsted near Cleveland, Ohio. So if you're interested in the Ameritron AL811A, along with the spare set of tubes and the other goodies, you need to contact this gentleman, which is Whiskey 8 Echo Delta Sierra. Whiskey 8 Echo Delta Sierra. His phone number is 440-476-6695. And his email address is Whiskey 8 Echo Delta Sierra. So there's 2 S's there. @gmail.com.
I'm going to see if I can
Another item we'll look here this morning. This is someone looking to give something away. It says, due to age and health conditions, I can no longer climb and work on my own tower. I'd like to take it down, but I cannot. So if a ham would like to have it, take it down, I would gift it to him or her along with the rotator, control head, and remote antenna switch. The tower is 40 feet high and has a fold-over section. It also has 2 antennae, one for 6 meters and one for 2 meters, and they will go with the tower. So possibly you know someone who's interested, so please contact me at 740. Contact me at 740-027-7998. Or you can email this gentleman at Bruce, it's Bravo Romeo Uniform Charlie Echo Delta, BRUCED, at embarkmail.com. And embark is Echo Mike Bravo Alpha Romeo, Quebec mail.com. He says the email is preferred. So there you go. Again, if you need anything repeated, you want more details, go up to the Ohio Section Swap Shop, take a look at the website there. Remember, if you got something you want to sell, give, trade, you can do that. All the terms and conditions are listed there, along with if you have a radio club that would like to be doing a club fundraiser, you can post that at the Ohio Section Swap Shop as well. WBA-REI, this is the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Any other stations, call out. Let's keep going here. All right, so a little news around the Ohio section. This is from Tom, WBA LCD. He's our Ohio section manager. Tom always writes a lot of good information in the Ohio section newsletter. And so this particular piece of information is a letter to Tom from a gentleman, a ham radio operator by the name of John, W-A-K-I-W. He says at last evening's Clinton County Amateur Radio Association meeting, Paul Geiringer, WBA-ZZR, announced that after 25 years, the Wilmington National Weather Service weather radar will be taken out of service for an estimated 2 weeks, starting this Monday, September 11th. Goes on to say that after 25 years of rotating 24/7, 365 days a year, the large dish rotation drive gear needs attention. Thus, the large golf ball covering the radar dome, and then the dome must be removed, allowing access to the rotating dish, which too has to be removed. So a large crane is being brought in to remove and then replace these items. Once removed, the drive gear will be replaced or repaired. Now, according to Paul, allowing for weather issues, it's anticipated the project will be completed on or before the 22nd. More information in his article if you're interested. Why go to the Ohio Section News and check out information under CQ from WBA LCD. Now, a little information on a little bit on the Great Lakes Division elections. We talked about this a identified as WB8REI. So Tom says the latest scoop on the Great Lakes Division elections is that ballots should be out between the third week of September and the end of the first week of October. So the deadline for getting your ballots returned to the American Radio Relay League is November 17th of this year. Now you'll be able to return your ballot either by mail or online. Not both. Pick one and get it done. Tom, according to Tom, he shouldn't have, like he says, he shouldn't have to remind you. The ARRL is all we got. There's no one else out there representing our interests. He says, are they perfect? Well, of course not. Nothing in this world is. But they deserve our participation and support. Tom says, please vote. And let's make the Ohio section a trend setter with our participation rate of voters. Throughout the league, only about 20 to 25% of hands are members. And about that same percentage of those members vote in the ARRL elections. He says he's sorry to say, but to be so blunt, but that's horrible. He says, please get your ballot submitted. There you go, you ARRL members. Be watching for your ballot. It's going to be coming out here third week of September, coming up here right soon to the end of the first week of October. So somewhere in that time frame, you should see your ballot. If you got over to the Finley Ham Fest, I know Bob was talking about that a little bit. I think you might have got a chance to see or meet the two contenders there. Scott N8SY and the other gentleman, I don't have it right in front of me here at the moment, but you got two really, really good people that are running for the Great Lakes Division director. We're so lucky to have such dedicated people to run for these positions and represent amateur radio. So again, if you remember, watch for your ballot coming in the mail, make sure you vote. It's really important. And again, you got two really good people to pick from. Look up their call signs, Scott N8SY. I don't have the other one right in front of me, which is a shame. I just don't have it available. But take a look at them. Look up their backgrounds. They all have their own websites. They even have details about themselves, their background on their QRZ pages. So check them out. Pick the one that you want and make sure you vote. JBT? WATBT, go ahead, Bob.
I'm just going to toss in that information for you. Both of them were at Finley. Mike Calder, WHCI, and Scott Young, of course, both of them were there. So they were actively politicking, but WHCI is Mike's caller. Over.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob, for jumping in here with that. I want to give equal airtime to both of those guys. They both got really good backgrounds. So very good. Mike Coulter, W8 Charlie India. Look him up on QRZ. He's also got a web page you can go to see what his hopes and concerns might be with regard to amateur radio and what he's going to do for us if he gets elected. And of course, Scott N8SY. We've heard Scott quite often. He also is on QRZ and also has a web page. So check his information and background out. And again, just pick the best one that you like and make sure you vote. Again, thanks, Bob, for that information. I appreciate that. WHABT, WB8REI, and the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Net. A little update. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here. There's a little bit to it here, but we all know that they have raised the dues or will be raising the dues on QST or your ARRL membership, excuse me. And there's some things that have changed, especially with regard to the printed magazine versus the online digital form. Something to be aware of if you are a life member. Listen up.
On purpose.
If you are a life member as of July of this year, to continue receiving the printed version of QST or On the Air magazine, you need to be contacting the ARRL between September 1st of this year and June 30th of next year. Life members who do not make the designation will receive their last printed magazine as part of the membership membership by December 31st of this year, and then you'll just continue accessing the ARRL magazines digitally. So again, if you're a life member and you want to keep getting the printed version, you need to make sure you contact the ARRL, let them know that. You only have a window of time to do that. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pay extra if you want to get the printed version. So your life members have a little advantage here. Make sure you contact the ARRL, let them know that. You got that time between September 1st of this year and June 30th of next year. This is WBREI. This is the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Again, just looking at some of the news in and around the Ohio section and some of the other things that are going to be coming up. We've talked and hit on the eclipses that are going to be happening. You know, there's the one coming up this year, October 14th. It'll cut a path from the northwestern part of the United States down more towards the southeast through Texas. We won't experience it, but you can still participate in this particular HAMSI activity this October 14th. But the big one for us will be next year, April the 8th, where we will be right in the center of the path of totality. Now, a little information about that. Both those dates, October 14th of this year and April 8th of next year, will bring both an annular and then a total, that's us, the total solar eclipse. Now, these celestial events will be followed widely by hams because of the sudden and dynamic changes that occur in the ionosphere during an eclipse. To see, while much is known about ionospheric propagation, much is still to be learned. It's interesting, you know, we're still, you know, it's a new area, not brand new, but it's not a real well-developed area, ionospheric propagation, forecasting, that sort of thing. So we're always still learning about it. And so these will be the last two solar eclipses in North America for nearly 20 years. And so they're going to allow us to, you know, study the ionosphere when we have the sun completely blocked out. So the ARRL is partnering with Ham Radio Science Citizen Investigation, that's HAMSI for short, to encourage amateurs to get on the air and operate as part of the HAMSI Festivals of Eclipse Ionospheric Science. Propagation experiments will include the Solar Eclipse QSO Party using CW, FT4 and 8, single sideband and other digital modes, and the Gladstone Signal Spotting Challenge using CW, Whisper, and FST4W modes.
Accessories.
The October 14th event will run from 1200 to 2200 UTC, and amateurs may operate on any band and any mode from 6 to 160 meters, except the ward bands. Now, all the details may be found at www.hamsci.org/eclipse. If you have any questions or know of a club that would be interested in having a presentation to learn more about the science around these events, please contact the HAMSI Public Relations Officer, Ed Jack, Whiskey X-Ray 2 Romeo. His email is pressrelations, all one word, pressrelations@hamsci.org. Ed is also the public information coordinator for the ARRL's Northern New Jersey section. So that's pretty neat. It'd be nice to have him come to your local club there and give a talk on these eclipses that are going to be coming up and how you can get involved with HAMSI and be part of the experiment. All right, WBREI, the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Shifting gears here, we're going from the kind of news around the Ohio section to more news kind of around the country here. Some of these are little pieces I'm going to pull right off of amateur radio news line here, so make sure we give them credit. We talked about this one a little bit last week. A lot of you have probably seen information on this. I don't know how this is going to pan out, so we'll keep an eye on it. This is regard to the formal retail giant Radio Shack. They're poised for a comeback, according to this article. So, since the beloved electronics retailer Radio Shack is returning to the United States marketplace under new ownership, the Radio Shack name is coming back from a difficult history that ended its pervasive presence with more than 5,000 locations around the United States. The company filed for bankruptcy twice under its previous ownership, and only a handful of its franchise locations were able to maintain a market presence. So now the brand's largest franchise, the Unicomer Group, based in El Salvador, has acquired the company. Although they aren't sharing much about their plans, Vice President of Franchises Rudy Simon released a statement saying, quote, "This acquisition will allow us to start another phase of growth and innovation shopping experience with the latest technology," end quote. And this article says, stay tuned. So we will watch and see how that pans out. Who knows, maybe it'll be some resemblance of Radio Shack that we all kind of remember. WB8REI in the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Net. Wanted to mention a little here on, and we talked about this before also, laser light communications with regard to NASA. And so the U.S. Space Agency is ready to shed new light on ways to supplement RF systems for communication. In this case, that light is laser light, and the experiment is testing higher bandwidth data transfer. So the mission is not NASA's first test of using optical communication technology instead of RF to transmit data, but it is an important move in making the technology part of regular space missions. The terminal, known as Illuma-T, will arrive on the International Space Station via a SpaceX commercial resupply mission where once it's installed, it will send laser light through an optical telescope, the Laser Communications Relay Demonstration, or LCRD. So wow, that's pretty neat, man. We'll have to pay attention to that since we follow the International Space Station quite a bit here on this net. This goes on to say the LCRD is on board a U.S. Defense Department satellite in a geosynchronous orbit about 22,000 miles from Earth. It is capable of transmitting data, pictures, and video at a rate of 1.2 gigabits per second, a rate comparable to some optical fiber internet connections. The LCRD has been on the satellite where it has been beaming data to ground stations in Hawaii and California. The NASA believes a successful demonstration of optical communications will provide an enhanced way to transfer information, and one day perhaps spoken communications from the International Space Station through a smaller, lighter system that also requires less power. So that's kind of interesting. You know, who knows? Rather than using the radio one day, they may just be beaming high-speed data or voice over IP using a laser. So we'll keep an eye on that. Interesting stuff. This is WB8REI. Are there any other stations that would like to check in? Anybody got any comments or queries or anything else before we continue? Don't forget to pull up your schematic on your Astron RS 70. We're going to be looking at that here in just a little bit. Anybody like to check in? Any comments or queries or questions? Call on. Okay, got one more thing to list here, or just to bring up. It's about the FCC, and they're seeking members for Technology Advisory Council. So listen up, Ed. Maybe this is something that might be something you're interested in. So if you work in broadcasting or have a background in science, engineering, or Technology, you may be interested in becoming a member of the FCC's Technological Advisory Council. So, the TAC, for short, provides guidance to the Commission and looks into issues that could have an impact on emerging technologies. The council is expected to help in the creation of informed policies. Members will be expected to be able to weigh in on such concerns as spectrum sharing techniques, 5G, and artificial intelligence. So if you're interested, the term lasts 2 years, and there are 4 council meetings a year, which are one-day sessions. For other details or submit a nomination, send an email to tac@fcc.gov. Again, that's TAC@fcc.gov. Now, nominations are being received until September 22nd, so you got a little bit of time if you're interested. The council expects to meet in December. WDREI, the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Net. Just continuing here with a little more information before we get over to looking at our, we got a couple other things before we get over to our schematics. I had a story here that I thought might share with you guys here this morning. Some of you have probably heard this maybe numerous times, but it may be new to some of you. I just think it's really interesting and kind of inspiring. This is about Thomas Edison and Reginald Aubrey Fessenden.
Yes.
And so it was not easy to surprise Thomas Edison, whose forward-thinking abilities predicted things so far in the future. Things as clean energy, robots that could do people's jobs. However, Reginald Aubrey Fessenden was born in 1866, who died in 1932, with one employee that impressed Thomas Edison beyond his own predictions. This is one of the world's most influential electrical engineers. Fessenden was celebrated by the International Electrical and Electronic Engineers, or the IEEE, for his great contributions to the early days of radio and wireless transmission. He was responsible for the first audio radio transmission in 1900, discovering the principle of amplitude modulation that led to AM radio and even developing sonar systems that determine things like ocean depth and iceberg collision avoidance. Fessenden was considered to be the father of radio telephony and even had a World War II boat named after him called the USS Fessenden. However, before he went on to create 500 plus patents himself, Fessenden was a lifelong admirer of Thomas Edison. And in 1886, he applied to work for Thomas Edison so that he could learn from the best. So as legend has it, Fessenden's original appeal to Edison about working for him went something like this. His written communication to Edison said, quote, "Do not know anything about electricity, but can learn pretty quick," end quote. To which Edison replied, quote, "Have enough men now who do not know about electricity," end quote. However, before the end of the year, he was hired for a semi-skilled position as an assistant tester for the Edison Machine Works, laying underground electrical mains in New York City. The end here. Fessenden moved to Edison's West Orange Labs in 1887, where he was Edison's assistant and participated in a broad range of projects which included several problems in chemistry, metallurgy, and electricity. Edison valued him for his ability to work out solutions across a variety of technical areas. Goes on to say his thinking and process skills surpassed the knowledge one is expected to build in school and formal settings. Fessenden could think on his feet, and Edison highly prized this ability. Now, eventually, Fessenden would become the chief chemist of Edison Electrical Company in 1890. end here. However, when Edison faced financial problems in 1890, he was forced to lay off most of the laboratory employees, including Fessenden. Despite this, Fessenden remained an admirer of Edison his entire life. He once said of Edison, quote, "There is only one figure in history which stands in the same rank as him as an inventor. That was Archimedes." DCBR, for identification. And wrapping it up here in the information, taking advantage of the practical experience that Fessenden gained with Edison, he had no problem finding positions with a series of manufacturing companies, including his own. He went on to surprise Edison yet again with his discoveries in radio by sending speech without wires, which Edison had initially thought was impossible. In the following years, Fessenden taught electrical engineering at Purdue and the University of Pittsburgh to teach others the same way of thinking that Edison had valued and cultivated with many projects at his labs. Interesting story. I always like to share some of those history kind of stories and some of the early founders of radio and some interesting twists and things that happened. Got a little information here. This is kind of a different topic, more on radio contesting. And I know I'm moving fast, but I just want to try to get in as much as I can here before we get to our schematic. And so if you're a radio contester, and you like to try to increase your score and do better, there's a lot of ways you can make improvements to your station, maybe more power, a better radio, better antenna, more gain, all those kind of things. Or you can try to improve maybe your strategy or your operating skills. Well, I was looking at, and this is I thought was an interesting one from the National Contest Journal. There's a gentleman, a ham radio operator, who wrote quite a lengthy article. But I'm just going to cover this very last part where he talks about search and pounce strategies on phone. If you're a contester, you probably know what search and pounce means, but maybe some of you don't. So that strategy just means you just tune the radio, you spin the dial, and you listen for people that are calling CQ, the contest you're operating, and then you work that station. And when you're done working them, you tune some more. And so basically you're searching, and then as soon as you hear that station call, you pounce on them. So that's called search and pounce strategy on phone. Well, according to this guy, he's quite a contester. He says he doubled his number of contacts this year to more than 900. That's interesting because I've gotten up to around 450 before. And man, if I could double my contacts to 900 simply by increasing my operating skill using the search and pounce strategy, why, I definitely got to check this out. So he says he doubled his number of contacts this year to more than 900, nearly within the same amount of operating time. He says that he learned that basically, if you're not running, you're dying. When he says you're not running, what he means by that is you park yourself on a specific frequency and you just keep calling CQ and wait for people to answer you, and what you're doing is you're running contacts like that. You're not doing search and pounce. You're sitting on one frequency and you're calling CQ contest and you're waiting for people to call you. And so he says if you're not running, he says you're dying. You're not going to make it. You're not going to get very many contacts. However, he says, in addition though, sometimes you can search and pounce nearly as fast as you can run while operating assisted. So he said you got to be in the assisted category. In other words, you're in the classification that uses packet clusters. So he says the November 1 Mike Logger Plus, you can see the band map. There's a picture here, you can't see it, but he's talking about a band map, and it's populated by town nut cluster spots. And then N1MM Logger Plus software says red indicates multipliers that you need, blue points out non multiplier stations you haven't contacted, and gray are stations you already worked. So using CAT, that's that serial connection between your computer software and your HF radio, you can set it up so when you click on a call sign, the transceiver tunes to that frequency. That's nothing really new, right? A lot of you have probably done that, but for contesting purposes, you can just point and click your way through. But sometimes there isn't actually a station at the spotted location, so you just move on. Also, the call signs and spots are sometimes incorrect, so you have to make sure you actually hear the call sign. He says, then I call once or twice. With a well-placed call, you'll often make the contact. If not, you move on. Pretty slick method. I mean, it's maybe some of you have already done it. I've never done it. I'm going to have to try it. Usually if I do search and pounce, I'm tuning the radio dial looking for people calling CQ contests. But here, if you use your logging software with that capability, you can just point and click and just keep moving. Let your radio jump right to that frequency, and you're not wasting time dialing, looking around, or answering other stations that you've already worked or multipliers that you do not need. Again, this guy doubled his score from 450 to 900 Qs simply by using the search and pounce strategy and the N1MM logger with the band map. Maybe some of you find that useful. This is WDREI. This is the North Central Ohio Information and Traffic Dot. A little bit more before we get to the schematic. Get your Astron RF70 schematics in front of you. We'll be going there in just a few minutes. I had to mention this a little bit. This past weekend, we got to listen in and participate a little bit in QSA Today's Academy. And so every year they do that. The cost is so minimal, it's $15. And to me, it's like the best bargain in amateur radio because you can learn so much. They have such great speakers with vast experience and various backgrounds in amateur radio. And so I really enjoyed it. It's not too late. I believe you can still pay the $15 and get in for like 30 days if you want to look at the already recorded presentations. And there's some excellent ones. If you're interested, just Google QSO Today Academy, and you'll drill down and you'll find if you're interested where you can pay the $15 online. That'll give you access to these presentations. And again, they'll be made available only for I think like about approximately. There was one in particular that I see that really, and some of you might be really interested in it. So if you're interested in the Raspberry Pi computer and doing cool things with it for amateur radio related, man, you got to check out the presentation. It's titled Using the AR-ISS Radio Pi with the CubeSat Simulator. What was really neat about this presentation was the gentleman that gave the talk, Alan Johnston, Kilo Uniform 2 Yankee. He's a professor at one of the universities. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment. But anyway, got to meet Alan Johnston at the Dayton Hamfest this past year. And got to talk to him, a really, really knowledgeable guy. Even gave us, they actually had an actual CubeSat satellite, which we got to hold and look at, which was really cool. And again, this presentation is super cool, man. If you want to learn how to do some really neat things with a Raspberry Pi computer and things that are associated with satellite communications and CubeSat satellites, if you want to learn how to, this is a ton of stuff.
The indoor temperature is
72. If you're interested in maybe being like a ground station that's interconnected throughout the world via the internet, you can do that. You incorporate your Raspberry Pi computer with a dongle, software-defined AM and FM radio. You can listen to all the amateur radio stuff, all kinds of stuff on it. You can look at the slow scan television images from the satellites. You can remote your radio dongle that's connected to your radio Pi, and you can look at and tune various radio stations from your own computer or laptop or website, and a whole myriad of other things that you can do. And I can't even begin to cover it. But again, if you really want to do it, and you don't have much experience at it, have any experience with a Pi computer, you want to delve into this, this is so cool. Spend the $15 and go to the QSO Today Academy, drill down to the presentation using the ARISS Radio Pi with the CubeSat simulator, and take a look at his presentation. He will take you step by step on how you can get your Raspberry Pi up and running, just simply by using an image that's copied onto a little SD card. And if you don't want to create your own image, you can buy one for $20 off their website. You can save yourself about $15 if you do it yourself. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, again, you can buy one already pre-made. Now you just pop it into the Raspberry Pi, fire up the Pi, and all that software is on there. You can use it. What I really like about it is you can use it in conjunction with this CubeSat simulator, which is another cool project that you can build and have that simulator actually transmit FFP data or telemetry, exactly like the actual CubeSats do, and you can use the actual software that you would use to copy right off a real satellite by copying the CubeSat simulator. That will allow you to learn how to copy FFK transmissions, or how about this one, binary phase shift keying, along with slow scan TV, APRS, and CW modes. So man, if you're interested in that kind of thing, using a Raspberry Pi, doing some cool satellite stuff on amateur radio, definitely check Alan Johnson's presentation out. Again, spend the $15, go to QSO Today Academy, get signed up, and check out his demonstration. All right. Before we get into the schematic, we're going to just touch on it briefly here this morning because we're a little afternoon as it is. Are there any other stations that would like to check in? Anybody that has any comments or queries, anything at all, call now. Kilo November 8 Charlie. This is Tom in the Juliet Zulu, Lake County, and no traffic. Traffic, and good afternoon, Tim. Tom, wow, congratulations on the new call sign. Kilo November 8 Charlie. Well, you may not be new check-in, obviously, to that time, but that is a new call sign. And if Jim's still with us, I don't see why we can't ring the bell here for a new call sign. K8ERN, Jim, can you put that one on the log? Can you please give me your previous call sign? Kilo Echo 8 Victor Juliet Victor KE8 BJB. Okay, Tom, KC is listed in our log at number 280. Glad to have you aboard as a new call sign on here. There's a short bell ring. Back to the net, KE8ERN. And it chuckled just a little bit there. I was thinking, why did Jim just give you a short bell ring? Well, that's a short bell ring because you checked in here before, but it is a new call sign. All right, thanks, Jim, for doing that. Really appreciate it. And Tom, congrats on the new call sign. That is a nice, by the way, 2x1 call sign, man. I don't know if you ever get into contesting, but those kind of shorter call signs are a real must if you're going to work PX pileups and stuff like that. My call sign's a real killer. Anyway, congrats on that, Tom. Thanks for checking in with us. Great signal. quiet. All right, we're going to get into our Astron RS70 schematic. Let's see, Astron RS70 power supply. And again, we picked it because Astron power supplies are really popular. There's lots of different versions. We're going to be strictly looking not at the switching power supply, but at the linear power supplies. They are all, even though we're looking at a specific schematic, the RS70, all the linear Astron power supplies are very similar in most areas. The big differences might have to do with either they have meters or they don't have meters, the current capability, which means they have more series pass transistors on them, and a few other minor differences. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. So what we learn here, you can probably apply to just about any Astron linear power supply. I wanted to get into, and I think I'm going to save this for next week. We're going to touch briefly on op amps. And you can spend a whole hour talking about operational amplifiers. But I'm going to just talk briefly on how op amp, the theory of op amps, which we all learned when we were studying for our AM radio licenses, how it applies and fits in to the Astron power supply. And so I'm going to save that for next week. What we will talk about here this morning is hopefully some of you were able to find that schematic for the Astron RS70A or M, and hopefully you have it up in front of you. You can earn a point if you just pick out a schematic symbol and identify it. Just that simple. Or you can ask a question, or you can describe something to us. Anything like that will get you 1 point and get you on the list here. So let's do this. Anybody that has a schematic in front of them, or anyone else for that matter, that would like to identify a part, comment on the schematic, call now.
This is KEADRN.
KEADRN, Jim. I'm just going to build a little list here. I got you on the list, and I'll come right back to you. Anybody else want to get on this little list? Take a minute, bring up that Astron RS70A schematic. You can just Google it, pick out a schematic symbol, and that'll get you a point, or ask a question or comment on anything. Anybody else want to get on the list, call now. All right, well, hopefully some of you will follow along here, because it's a lot of fun, and it's a good review of reading schematic symbols. And again, we try to apply it toward, we do apply it toward real pieces of equipment that we all use. All right, so we got Jim on the list, so that's good. KEADRN, I'm going to go over to you, Jim. Tell us what you got. What do you see on the schematic, or questions or comments about it? Go ahead.
Well, I've searched and searched to try to find a different schematic. This thing is just terrible. I don't know how they could put something like this out. Anyway, I had trouble figuring out where the output was on this thing. And I look up at the upper right-hand corner, and there's a ammeter and a voltmeter. Well, if you follow the voltmeter down, you can find the two output lines. And that is really about the only thing I could see on here, other than kind of below that. It looks like there's and the line went blank. Anyway, back to you, KEADRN.
Hey, very good, Jim. I'll come back to you in a second here. Maybe I do that all the time too. When you get old, right when we get old, you just completely lose what you were going to say. I'll come back to you in a second. But yeah, very good. So Jim was pointing out a couple things. First, how terrible the schematic is. And I'm glad you brought that up, because he's right. It is. It's terrible. Not terrible in the drawing. It's terrible in the printout. It's very difficult to read a lot of the numbers, to see some of the symbols. It's a relatively poor drawing, or reproduction is a better way of putting it. I'm sure the original was good. I did find a pretty schematic. I did a lot of hunting around because I ran into the same problem just what Jim brought up. It's hard to read some of the numbers and some of the symbols. So I don't have the URL to give to you guys this morning, but I will have it for next week. So that I'll give it to you. And it's not perfect, but it's a definite improvement over the ones that most of you are looking at. Matter of fact, I can read most of the symbols and values. So if somebody needs something, I can give it to you. You can write it into your schematic, and draw it in, or whatever you need to do. But I'll give you the URL on how to get a pretty clear one. Matter of fact, I'm looking at the one that you guys are looking at, which is fairly poor, and comparing it to the one I've got. And the one I've got is quite a bit better, quite a bit. So again, I'll try to get that available so that you guys can all see that one. Jim identified in this particular schematic, the voltmeter. This particular schematic shows that this Astron power supply has a built-in voltmeter and there's also a built-in current meter. It's right to the left of it. Jim's probably looking at that. The one's just a circle with a V in it for voltmeter, and the other one's a circle with an in it for current. And so if you were looking at that power supply from the front face plate, you would see a current meter and an ammeter. And Jim just identified those schematic symbols. So fine business. Jim also identified where the actual output of the supply is. So you got to study the diagram a little bit to orient yourself and see, where things are located. If you look very carefully, like Jim said, you'll see the positive output binding post on the schematic. It has a plus sign by it. It looks like a little left-hand caret or left-hand arrow. That's the positive terminal. And then the negative terminal, you'll see another arrow. It doesn't have a minus sign on the dot drawing by it, but that is the negative side of the supply. And so it's quite visible. You can see that really good there. Jim, what else? Anything else you wanted to point out or comment on?
Jeff, my memory came back to me here. Kind of in the middle of where the voltmeter is hooked up, it looks like a Zener diode there on test point 1. I'd like to know if that is actually a Zener diode. Back to you, KEADRN.
All right, I think I've identified what you're pointing out there, Jim. And so, what you called a test point 1, I guess you could call it a test point. You'll see those spotted all over the schematic. They're like a little octagon with a number in them. What those signify on this drawing is the actual physical wire that goes to the regulator circuit board. So there's a little circuit board in there that has all this regulator circuitry on it. And then there are a number of components that are like chassis mounted. They're not on the circuit board. And so those little octagons with the numbers on them, those represent locations on the circuit board. There's a colored wire that leaves the circuit board and goes to the physical component. And so what you're looking at, there's a wire on position number 1. I don't know what color it is. I'd have to look at an actual power supply because it doesn't give that on the schematic. But what that component is, that's a schematic of an SCR. That's an SCR. And what you're looking at there is number 1, that wire leaves the printed circuit board and it goes to the SCR. Specifically, it goes to the gate. That's called the gate of the SCR. So an SCR is a 3-terminal device, and it's normally off or in a high impedance state. However, if this Astron power supply circuitry, and we'll talk about this later, detects a high voltage, that it could actually damage the connected equipment, it will fire that SCR via that number 1 connection or the gate. It puts a voltage on that gate, which then turns that SCR on. And if you look closely at the SCR, you'll see the anode is connected to the positive supply of the battery or power supply, and the negative side of the SCR is connected to ground. That means it puts a hard, dead short right on the power supply, which is going to do one of two things. It's going to either limit or fold back the current, or it's going to blow the fuse. There are also other things that could happen there too. It could current limit and not blow a fuse and not fold the current back, in which case those series pass transistors are going to get really, really hot. However, it's called a crowbar circuit. I think Mark mentioned that last week. The reason it's called a crowbar circuit is because it's just like taking a crowbar and dropping it right across the terminals of the power supply. It puts a hard, dead short on the power supply. In most cases, that would cause major damage. However, in this case, it's used to protect your equipment from over voltage from the power supply. If something in the power supply, those transistors fail, and they dump 40, 30, or 40 volts out on your radio, you don't want it to damage your radio. So the circuitry fires the gate of the SCR, puts a dead short on the power supply, which then is sensed. It's sensed by components that throttle the current way back, and they throttle voltage way back. In some cases, they'll blow the fuse on the AC side. So what you identify there is a 3-terminal device. It's called an SCR. Jim?
That's all I had. I wish could have read that, but I do see it there and can make that out in SCR. Back to you, KEADRN.
All right, very good, very good. Well, Jim, you easily got 1 point. Good job. Good job of pointing those out. Anybody else? Pretty simple. Let's look at that schematic diagram. Even though you're probably looking at one that's kind of poor, difficult to read, like Jim pointed out. Nonetheless, there are still some components there that you can identify. And so if you can do that, get you a point. Each time you get a point, you'll get close to maybe being the winner of the lotto card at the end of the 4 weeks. So anybody else want to give it a try? Call now. Want to make sure everybody got a chance if they wanted to jump in here and get on the list. Don't give up. Give it a try. You can identify a part on there. If not, you got to go back, right, and study your schematic symbols. Well, keep it in mind. If you don't have the schematic yet, get it. If you don't have a good one, I'm going to give you a URL to a clearer drawing that you'll be able to read a little bit better. And we can go into this in as much detail as you guys want to. I spent a little bit of time yesterday there just going over it. Pretty familiar with quite a few components, a lot about the way the circuit operates and that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's some of you guys that are on here that are also pretty experienced in troubleshooting and repairing Astron power supplies. So chime in here. You know, this is about sharing knowledge and information and learning as we go and having a little bit of fun at the same time. But remember, next week, before we get into the schematic, I'm going to talk just a little bit about op-amps, specifically how it ties in to the Astron power supply. And it will enlighten you, if you don't already know, a little bit more about how this whole thing works, what it actually does, you know, how it regulates the voltage, how it folds the current back, how it protects your equipment from damage. If you get high voltage or transient spikes from the AC power line or those sorts of things. So we'll talk all about that. We'll talk in great detail if you want on the LM723. That's the little integrated circuit. All right, I think we're getting ready to close it here. It's 12:20. Before I do, anybody else have any comments, anything you want to point out, questions, queries about All right, so we're going to talk about op amps next week. Just looking at the schematic, that will give us better insight into how the whole thing works. And then I'm going to touch on a couple pieces of equipment that are handy to have if you're troubleshooting an Astron power supply. They're not totally necessary, but they do make troubleshooting a little bit easier, and you might find them interesting. They may be pieces of equipment you've heard of before, and maybe you've always wondered what they do, or they may be equipment you've never heard of before, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. All right, now, before we close, let's just take a quick look at what's coming up on the contest calendar. It's lots and lots of QSO parties this weekend. And so this weekend would be a lot of fun. You know, enjoy doing it. And there's a ton of them all going on at the same time this weekend, the weekend of September 16th and 17th. What that means, you start tuning around this weekend, well, you're going to hear multiple QSO parties going on. Not just one, lots of them. Here's the ones that will be operating this weekend. The Iowa QSO party, the New Hampshire QSO party, the New Jersey QSO party, the Texas QSO party. Those 4 or 5, that's 4 of them, are going to be all on this weekend. Texas, New Jersey, New Hampshire, and Iowa. All different. They're all different contests, so you have a lot of fun picking and choosing the ones you want to operate and maybe make some contacts on all of them and give the individual states some good contacts. If you got a chance to operate the Ohio QSO party a couple weeks ago, you'll know what a lot of fun that was. If you missed it, you missed out on a good time. Operating a QSO party from the actual state is really exciting because you're the contact that everybody wants to make. If you want to know more about these QSO parties, just go to the contest calendar on page 36 of the latest edition of the Ohio Section News, and you'll see all the QSO parties listed. Pick one out, pick one of the links out. It'll take you to their website, and there they'll explain more in detail how the QSO party actually operates and what you're trying to do. I think I've said enough before we close. Are there any comments or queries? Anyone with any announcements? Amateur radio related? Doesn't have to be amateur radio related. Anybody got anything? Call now. All right, sounds pretty quiet, man. Everybody's numbed out. Everybody's pretty hungry. I'm ready to go eat lunch too. Anyway, we got lots of things. We give you lots of things to think about, things to look at, things to try and experiment on. So exert a little effort and delve into something new, try something different. And boy, good or bad, whatever your experience might be, well, share it with us here on the net. We'd be interested in hearing about it. All right, I don't think I have anything else. Let me run down my credits of all the people we need to thank here this morning. Thank you to KEPX, Ron, for being our HF liaison station. Thanks to WA8JBT, Bob, for all the info on special event stations, Hamfest, and volunteer examiner sessions. Thanks to KCPDU, Dan, for all the really nice ISS and Tyon Gone passes, as long as our weather forecast. Thanks to Jim, KEERN, for keeping track of the call signs, and definitely for the HF propagation reports from the beacons at 8 o'clock Wednesday morning. We appreciate Jim updating us on that. And thanks to Pat for the use of the repeater network. And we can't forget Lenny, N8XLQ. Thank you so much to Lenny for that really nice YouTube page. And if you haven't looked at it yet, definitely check it out. You can listen to your signal. If there's something you missed on the net, you want to hear it again, you can play it back. Really, really nice capability. everybody. Thanks to all you guys that checked in here this morning. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. We'll catch you all again here next Wednesday for the North Central Ohio Information Traffic Day. With that, we'll close this session at 12:25 p.m. Let's go to lunch. Everybody have a great week. WBRI and the net are out clear. 73.
Peach, Jeff, I had a biscuit sausage with cheese. Go get you some to eat. Catch you next week.
Yeah, that sounds like good food, Jim. That's brain food. Biscuits, sausage, and cheese. That sounds really good. You know what the wife's got cooking down there? Yeah, I'll find out as soon as I get down there. Good talking to you this morning. Thanks for the update on the ISS, man. I appreciate that. I really do. I learned a little bit about those foreign schools. Still, a lot of them speak English, so that makes it easy, I guess, for the astronauts and for all us guys back here listening. All right, enjoy your lunch. Talk to you later, Jim. WBREI.
7:35.
Is that NXLQ, Lenny? Huron City, I'm down the street from my studio, so if anybody wants to get in there and bark a little bit and get an audio check for themselves on the system, I'm not going to be back in the house for another few minutes to shut it down, so go ahead and have at it, guys. NXLQ.
Lenny, appreciate it. WB8REI.
I thought I was gonna be in and out of drug martin a lot faster than I was. So, all right, heading back to the house. Yeah, don't be shy, man. Step up and check yourself. That's what it's for. And NXLQ.
How did I? What? Wow, like that for girls, you know, yeah. Okay. If you're sitting all right, that's how I make a lot of noise. Just enough. Hang on. All right.
And at XLQ, Lenny here on City. Closing down the YouTube page. Ladies and germs. So we'll check in with you next weekend. Talk to you later in the evening or this afternoon sometime. And at XLQ, YouTube clear. Germs.